Time to talk some Pacific Classic and Del Mar Saturday. We're going to get into all 5 of the graded stakes races, including the Pacific Classic for Saturday. We're going to look at the daily racing form past performances. The we is me, Gino Bucola, and my buddy Barry Spears, the sniper. Barry, buddy, how you doing? Getting ready to talk some Del Mar.
Oh yeah, I can't wait for this card. This is a great card. We're looking at all the stakes races. I can't be more excited. I know there's a lot of things that are going on in general, like hurricanes and all the kind of bad stuff. But this is something to look forward to this weekend for sure.
And DRF has a couple big things happening. They have a Labor Day sale that is right now all the way through September the 4th. You can get up to 50% off past performances, DRF picks, clocker reports, digital paper. Get to drf.com and you can click right on the tab. If you follow in the videos or on YouTube, I actually put the link directly there too, so you can click right to it for the Labor Day sale. And we will be looking right now at your past performances for Pacific Classic Day. You can get those now. 11 races, 5 graded stakes races. They have a full store dedicated to Del Mar for every racing day all throughout the meet and for Saratoga. And Barry, can you believe that this is closing weekend at Saratoga? It's Monday, that's it. And then next week for Del Mar. So just a couple weekends left of the big summer meets. We still have a lot of quality racing, though, to come, and it'll get started on Saturday with Del Mar and their really big Saturday. So let's dive in. Barry and me are going to talk the 5 graded stakes. So we're going to start in race 7 on Saturday. We're going to be looking at the daily racing form past performances here, and we'll start with the Del Mar Mile. I will say, Barry, the conversation that we usually have every summer, West Coast versus East Coast people debate, Del Mar versus Saratoga. Del Mar's more laid back. You got the beach over there. Saratoga, a little more prestigious, usually have better quality racing. I would say this is probably one of the first summers in a long time where I don't think there's been much of a debate. Saratoga's just had a very unlucky summer. There's been some things that they've kind of brought upon themselves, but they've had horrible weather, which they can't control, and they've been taken off the grass repeatedly. And on the flip side, Del Mar's been really good and really consistent throughout. In particular, the big days have been fantastic, like huge cards, big fields, really quality stakes races. And again, it just doesn't look like we're going to have a whole lot of heavy chalk in the races that we're talking about.
Oh yeah, there's definitely prices to be had in these races. Saratoga, they've had a lot of bad luck,
Yep.
unfortunately, this year, and Del Mar has been the beneficiary of that, and their full fields every day has been excellent out there. So I don't think that'll slow down anytime soon going into Labor Day weekend and then finishing up next week. And then after that, we're going to the Pennsylvania Derby, and then Breeders' Cup right around the corner. So there's lots of stuff coming up, man.
Yeah, very excited for the next couple months and very excited for the next couple days as Barry and I record this on Thursday afternoon into the evening as we get ready for Saturday's Pacific Classic and race number 7, the Del Mar Mile. So just kind of diving through the field in here, horses that'll take a good amount of support. Du Jour, who had a couple really tough beats in back-to-back races and finally was able to put it all together, dropping down to a little lower level. You have Count Again, who's going to take a ton of money, second start back off the bench, I think will be a major player in here. And then others that will definitely be getting a lot of support. You'll see to the outside, who was I looking for? Oh, the 6 is one of Barry's old favorites. Exalted before. There we go. Exalted will be one of the major players and probably go favorite in here. The 4-race win streak. And he had time off, Barry. So now what he's able to do is he's able to set himself up nicely to get to the Breeders' Cup. So with a horse like him, though, you want to make sure that while he's been impressive and he's won all of his races on the grass, he might be prepping to be even better down the line. For a horse like him coming back here, this may not be his absolute best. But he's a horse we at least have to start with because he's been perfect on the turf.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't knock him at
No.
any point, through his past performances, especially his turf work. I mean,
And
he's
he
been
was good.
excellent.
he was good before the grass, right? It wasn't like he was a bad horse. He was just kind of
Kind of
right
knocking on the door. Yeah.
in good against good horses, just a cut below like stakes quality. And he's a perfect example of horses of like why horse racing is so great and it's such a puzzle because it's not linear for any horse. This was a good horse. The connections who had this horse early on probably thought they had a really nice horse, and they did. He just had some trouble. He missed some time. He was just like you said, knocking on the door. And then finally, you put it on turf. And it's like, for whatever reason, he just makes his own trip. And now he's been able to blossom into the horse they probably always thought he could be. And he's a grade 1 winner. He's won 4 in a row. And you say, look, it looks like he gets good trips because he puts himself in that spot every time. Like, they're going pretty quick when he sits, and he just sort of sits and gets the jump on everybody.
Yeah, and that's a really good thing to have. You have that positional speed, and then you can finish,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what you want in a turf horse.
Especially like a mile race like this too, right?
Yeah, because it's kind of an elongated sprint. I mean,
Mhm.
nowadays the way they ride these races, it's more sprint like than it is like a traditional classic distance kind of race where they slow early. They're kind of running pretty fast through the whole race in these mile races, especially when you
on the
get
West
to
Coast.
higher, right, West Coast, and then higher level, grade 2, grade 1 types. They really motor, and these are really competitive races because sometimes sprinters can have sort of an advantage stretching out. Um, this race is awfully tough, but there does seem to be kind of a lack of speed. And a horse like number 2, Sumter, kind of jumps out at me as a horse that could actually kind of run better than he has because of the pace scenario that he's facing on Saturday. I think he's definitely going to get the lead. It's just a matter of how long he wants to run.
And because of that scenario, that will get to one of the horses I like a little bit too. But talk to us a little bit more about Sumter, who's going to stretch out now, second start off the bench. And yeah, you just feel like he's this stretching out from 5 furlong races and 6 prior to that. Last time he was going a mile, he was on the lead. He's closest to the rail. He puts 2 starts together. Just lots of positives for him.
Yes, exactly. And if you look throughout his career, I mean, his race on December 26th, 2022 in the Mathis Mile was pretty damn good against some really tough competition, including a couple of horses that you'll see on Saturday. But his mile races have been very, very good. And you go back, he ran 2 decent ones after breaking his maiden at Santa Anita in some lower level stakes races. I think he's a better horse since then and will definitely be real formidable at a big price on Saturday.
So the way you think the race could shape up, that's sort of why I like the number 8 in here, War at Sea. Because I think this horse can sit a really nice trip just behind whoever the leaders are. Because I don't want him on the lead, but I want him sitting right behind. This is a horse who was really good. His turf form was excellent. He had some issues in his races last year where he just missed a little bit of time between June and then the Del Mar Derby. He missed time last year, and then following that race, he's been off for 10 months. But he shows up on August the 4th, and he runs a bang-up race in a race that's not even for him. That 5 furlong trip is not even his best trip at all. He just sort of did that based on class and based on ability. That was his first start as a 4-year-old. He's grown up and like matured a lot because we missed basically the end of his 3-year-old season right into his 4-year-old season. Like all of that development, all that maturity he did not on the track. So he's a better horse, I think, now than his past performances overall would suggest. Second off the bench, second start at 4, stretches back out. Can he just step forward off of that last effort? Because that was a good effort, and that was a progression that he was showing in his earlier races. He's back to a mile trip right here, and we know it should be no problem for him. We've seen him get a mile and an 1/8. He sits a great trip in here. I like him quite a bit in this spot, the 8, because I agree with you. There doesn't look like there's that much speed. I think a key to the race is your old buddy, Visitant.
Yeah, I took a long look at Visitant, and he just doesn't run when he's on the turf. He ran one time, and he didn't really do much. And I don't think he's just going to just turn it on.
And that's the
on
key, because
Saturday.
what you're pointing out is an interesting thing. If he is okay with the surface, he'll at least be forwardly placed
Yes.
and could be, could have a say in making this a faster pace, or maybe sitting right behind and in the mix with some of the horses that we talk about. But then there's sometimes where a horse doesn't like a surface and then they don't even show their normal speed on it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
that's
you
the
see that
thing.
a
Yeah.
lot. A lot of the time, like a speed horse, his only turf race, and it's tough to use that one as a gauge. It was actually the Del Mar Derby back in 2019. It was going a mile and an eighth. He didn't show any speed at all that day, but that race was followed by a long, long layoff. So it's really tough. Maybe he just couldn't get out of the gate and just something was
Right.
wrong. So they were
Yeah.
careful on him. But this happens with horses that are just particular on one surface. And he's not been bad on the dirt. He's definitely better on the synthetic, and that's where he's done a lot of his dirty work, but he's actually had some okay success on the dirt too. So like, he's just a nice horse overall, but I don't know.
He's a tough read.
Yeah,
Tough
he's
read.
very tough read. Very tough read. I agree.
What's funny about Visitant, seeing Max Field in those in the results of some of his races, which is kind of
Mucho
funny.
Gusto.
Yeah, I mean, this horse has been around. He's tough, but he's 7 now. I just don't know. Coming off a layoff like this, I just don't expect him to be that forwardly placed. And I think the two with the inside position might get the better of him early and then slow everybody down.
So yeah, I mean, just a fantastic betting race. The 9 I played last time, Twist, and was really impressive. Like, just a horse that makes really good sense too. Came into the country with nice form and came into the Saddler barn, just needed the first race a little bit and had a kind of a troubled trip, and then sat a perfect trip. But the thing with him, which was sort of funny, he was just all over the place late in this race. And I'll just sort of skip. He was the one in here. So he ends up, like, he's sitting a really nice trip just behind the leaders. Perfect spot. Really can't ask,
pocket trip.
you to just where you want to be. And when he moves through, he gets a beautiful opening and he's able to move to the lead. And then he kind of starts to wait on horses, I think, because he hits the lead too early. Right here, he's like looking around, and look how wide he goes on the turn. And he just gets lost out in the middle of the racetrack out here for a little bit.
He got a little rank, or either that or the jock tried to slow him down a little bit.
And then he sort of lets him go, and he sort of kicks back into gear here,
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty impressive, especially, doing all that in the stretch and at the top of the stretch. I wasn't really too sure what to do with this horse, to be honest, because of the post position.
Yeah.
And with the 8 inside, and they're projected kind of to get the same kind of trip, kind of
pushes him out a little bit.
Yeah, it might hurt him, but he's definitely talented. It's really upon your call. I guess 12-1. If you like him, pull that trigger, man.
Yeah. The 8 and the 9 horses that we mentioned. The 4 is obviously the horse to beat. Barry talks quite a bit about the horse he thinks would get the lead, the 2. And then you have a horse like the 3, Count Again, who
solid.
Solid, totally makes sense. And you could see it going one of two ways. Like, now as an 8-year-old, if he just has lost a little bit of a step and ran like a nice 3rd in here, wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah, I mean, he's up against it a little bit because
with
of
the
his
pace.
running style. Yeah, he's going to have to launch from like last.
But if they go quick enough, if there are combinations, he loves this trip. He will come running, and if he's still got something left, he's going to show it in this race, making his second start back. His ceiling is one of the higher in this race if it were to set up well for him. He would be a horse to be really tough to hold off.
Yeah, I thought him and Du Jour were probably going to get kind of similar trips from way downtown, but stranger things have happened. So this is a good betting race. I mean, you got to make decisions, but this one's a tough one.
Yeah, really, really great edition of the Grade 2 Del Mar Mile when you have a 3-1 lukewarm favorite. That's a Grade 1 winner last time. And we've talked about 6, 7 horses. You could see different paces projecting based on what 1 or 2 other horses will do. This is exactly what you're looking for. in a horse race with a big field and a good betting race. That's the 7th on Saturday at Del Mar. Let's turn the page, Barry, to race number 8. This one is the grade 3 Torrey Pines. We're going to go a mile on the dirt in here. And this is a fun race because you have Fiza, who's going to be the heavy favorite, 8-5. She won her first 5 starts, including a grade 1. And then she was 3rd in the Black Eyed Susan. And she's like solid. She's like a solid grade 2 horse. And she could get the better of certain fields. She's got a good sort of running style, Barry. She kind of puts herself in the race all the time, but she's just not a fun horse to bet.
Yeah, because she gets pounded at the window every single time.
and she's not like overwhelming on speed figures.
No, not at all.
So you always look at her like, if you like a horse that has some upside, or you like a horse in the right spot, you feel like they could beat her. And it's done me to the detriment a few different times. But talk to us about this field. How do you see it? Who are some of the horses on your radar?
Well, one thing before I kind of get into who I really like, but if you look at Fiza's past performances, you can see a clear pattern here. Like, I know I've done this on our Stable Duel live streams when I tell you about horses that after they turn 3, so the jump from 2 to 3. So if you look at Fiza's past performances, December 10th, she won the Starlet, last race of her 2-year-old season.
Yep.
January 28th comes back. You see that number, the Beyer number is the same. That means, or at least signals to me, that there's another jump up in this horse's future at the, running these kind of races. And you see what happened the next time. Jumped up another, 4 points. Then another 8 points after that. So that's how, you get the Beyer progression. And that's a real good example of that sort of thing. I figured I'd point it out since, we regularly use Formulator in the Beyer numbers. So it's something that you'll see quite a bit. And it's a good indicator that a horse is about to kind of break through. That being said, there's 2 horses that I kind of keyed in on here. Coffee in Bed.
Oh, you knew we were going to get, I knew we were going to be on this one together. Yeah.
For those same reasons.
Yeah.
You see the horse came back, this one isn't as quite as clear cut, but you got to keep in mind who the trainer is. This is Richard Mandella. He takes his time with his horses, and when they're out there, they usually run pretty damn good. And you can see that, she broke her maiden January 6th, came back, improved race against Any Who, and just missed.
And Any
Then
Who just
laid off.
It's the jump, right? And the only reason why you
That's
lose
it.
to Any Who in that race is because Any Who is a little more tactical than you.
Exactly. Then comes back, July 28th.
And we can watch this race because
Yeah.
it was a good, really good race, and
very, very good race.
And even though the figure wasn't as good, it doesn't bother me as much. It was a good race coming back off of a few months, and we're gonna watch her. She's the 9 in here, and you can see she stumbles a little bit right there. She's got the orange cap, and she backs up. So instead of being a little more forwardly placed, like we saw her in her first couple races where she sat like 2 or 3 lengths off, she's way out of it.
I call that the layoff effect.
Yep.
When they start slow off a layoff like that, and
you get kind of squeezed out of a spot, and she's 10th here. She's kind of slow the first few strides, but then you see her on the outside start to move from 10th, 9 lengths off. She's 3 deep. She's up to try and contend, but you can see the top couple already separate, but she's got a nice sustained rally here on the outside. Right. And it looks to me, based on this, that the mile will be fine for her because she had to move her move was such a long, sustained move here that she can do that same thing. She can also sit a little bit closer. See, she's up to 3rd here. She's basically run her race now, getting up to 3rd, right? Yep. And the top 2 have just separated.
Yeah. And this, I can just picture in my head Richard Mandella just like, yeah, that's exactly what we wanted out of this race.
Just misses second right there too.
He's like, this is exactly what we want going into the race we really want to win.
Yep.
and it's this one on Saturday. And I think this horse just sits, just rates a good trip, will be sitting a good trip, and will probably be a decent price. I don't think you're going to get 12 to 1.
No, and you know what? I sent this one in as a stable dual play because of
Uh,
that, right?
yeah,
Because I think you want to lock this one in somewhere where you can get that type of a price because she feels more like a 6-1 shot.
exactly. And that's probably what she'll be. And
Yep.
maybe even a little bit smaller than that, maybe
Yeah.
9 to 2 ish,
Yeah.
which is fine, especially the way these strings of races are coming up. If you're playing multis, 9 to
She'll,
2 isn't going to be a bad thing in
she's
this
not going to
situation.
be the two outside horses are still going to take money. So
Oh,
she won't
absolutely.
get hit. Like even if she gets hit a little bit on the win, on the win end, like that's probably where she belongs. I think, like about like you said, half where she was, and she's bred like pretty nicely. Like look at her dam. Was a mare who was multiple stakes placed
Oh,
and had
yeah.
a nice little career. And she's also a half to a horse named Great Stuff, who was a graded stakes winner a couple years ago, won the toboggan and was like a 7-time winner. So like this is a decent little pedigree. She's run well in all three of her starts. They make sense. She's shown she can come from off it if she has to. I think the distance will help. Just check so many
Yeah.
boxes for me.
This is like the quintessential, the phrase well meant.
Yep.
That's what I feel about Coffee,
Yeah.
Coffee in Bed. The other horse that kind of stuck out to me was Ocean Club, and I bet this horse last time in the San Clemente on July 22nd. She got beat by Anisette,
Who's very nice.
very very good horse. And I think just the way this horse ran that day.
I was impressed
Switch.
with that trip, right? That she
Yes,
showed
exactly.
she could sit a little bit and not
That's what
have to
I.
need the lead
Yes,
because she's
exactly.
drawn towards the outside here and could get that same sort of trip if she just kind of puts herself in it, pushes the lead, pushes the pace a little bit, and then sits. That was impressive to me. That was a
Yeah.
good effort.
And I don't really think she wants to turf, to be honest with you. I think getting her off back onto the dirt is probably where she wants to be. And I think she ran a winning race. I mean,
She
I don't
did.
know if you pull that video up.
Yeah.
Just in the stretch or the far turn in the stretch, she makes a winning move, just not good enough. Anisette kind of had a better trip, and that was the difference. But
Yeah. So she's the 9, I
the 9.
believe, in here. And yeah, she's sitting just off the pace. And Anisette's kind of moving behind her, and she moves in front. And like it's a good effort. I was surprised that she was able to sit like 3 lengths off like this and move. I thought she was more of a need the lead type horse. And so this showed me a little bit of something. She's looking for room right here. She's in the yellow cap.
Right,
And
she had to wait.
She had to wait a little bit right here, and now she gets a nice opening, but her momentum has sort of stalled, and Anisette just is right there to jump
Right,
right on
exactly,
top.
and that's exactly what did her in. She kind of had to slow down a little bit, while the others on the outside didn't get
A clear-cut
stopped.
second, too.
But a nice second, and I think that sets this horse up for possibly a decent run. And you'll probably get every bit of that 8 to 1, if not higher, because she's coming off turf races.
The key is, with Maldonado and Ceiling Crusher to the outside here, if this horse has got to fly. I
Yeah.
think in sitting off the pace a little bit, she got shuffled. I think she ended up a little farther back than she wanted. And generally when I see a horse like this do that, I figure the next time they're going to go very fast just to try to overcompensate for what happened last time. And you get Maldonado aboard and you have the outside draw. So it's just gotta be go time.
Yeah,
her.
I mean, what other way is there to go
No,
for this horse?
none.
But my issue is the outside post, because they got to work hard to get there.
Yep.
And then B, FISA, who I think they're gonna push and
The
try
8
to go out.
is like is coming out of softer races, but this horse is pretty quick too. Is
Got some zip. Yeah.
coming out of a sprint race. Also, Ocean Club is quick enough to push a little bit and then sit like we've seen from out there. Any who stretching out with the blinkers coming on. I don't like in any who's race, 2 back in the Summertime Oaks went a little slow. I don't think she wants that trip. I think they want her to be closer, especially going a mile. Yeah, I like
I
the
think
4,
Infinite Diamond it should be forwardly placed here. I saw
both the
that
2
horse
and the
run
3.
twice. I saw that horse run twice at Gulfstream, and she was really dominant. And I think they kind of went a different direction and
Yeah.
didn't handle this horse the way at least I think
You know, and
she
it's
should.
funny, those 2 races actually are a little better than you at first glance when you
They
just
are.
sort of look and you see
Hmm.
like, 4th and 5th, but they were in big fields. The 4th race effort, the 4th place finish was only beaten a couple. Eddie's New Dream came back to win. And then last time kind of moved up into contention. And then Anisette was just really
It was
impressive
just too much.
in
Yeah,
that
she's
race.
she's been too much out there for anybody.
But
And the
she could
switch back
sit
to
just
dirt.
sort of
Yeah,
be just like in that second, like just kind of fall into it. I could see her falling into a nice trip. I,
Flying
if I
Connection has a lot of speed too,
so
just
here's
to
the
kind of
thing.
mess it up.
I'm gonna throw in the one on some pick 4s and pick 5s because of this race, the way it shapes up. She's definitely not the filly that everybody thought after her sparkling debut. And then she came back again in her 3rd start and was impressive. And most of her career, she's been overbet, but most of her career, she's been in races where like they haven't been as much speed there early on. This could be a race that really sets up for her. She may
Yeah,
not have to be that good or be the best horse down the line, but she could really get a good trip, like a trip that she hasn't gotten in many of her races in here.
yeah. I mean, you want to believe that this horse has the talent to win a race like this. I'm not so sure. I mean, I've dubbed her the female version of Tapit Trice,
Sure. The only
because she's
reason
very
why I'm
talented.
okay now is that you're going to
This
get
is
the
a
best
pace.
price,
Yeah.
the pace and the price for the first.
Mhm.
Because when you look at this race, like we did, you go through so many speed horses and you're looking for some horses that can sit off the pace. She's one of those, the truest closers that you're going to find that
Oh
just
yeah.
wants to drop way back. And if they go flying and the race just like naturally comes back to her, she,
Right. That's
it,
how she won. That's
and
basically how she's won her 2
exactly.
starts.
And I
The 2
wouldn't want to
races she's
take
won.
her ever at a short price.
Nope.
But in this type of race with a bigger field and a lot of speed, if she's 6-1 or above, if you're looking for those types of horses to throw in your pick 4s and pick 5s and stuff, the way this race shapes up, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
you see all the time horses, especially with buyer speed figures, because that's basically what I use a lot.
yeah,
Um, but you'll see horses that will outrun their average buyer, let's say, when circumstances are optimal, like whether it's a speed horse or a come from behind horse. This is one of those opportunities that I think this horse could actually kind of outrun the odds or outrun her buyers if
yes,
the pace is the way it
yep,
should be and they get that perfect trip,
totally
which is
agree.
certainly possible.
Because there aren't that many horses in here who would really benefit. Like we're saying, a lot of them want to be close or on the lead. And if
Yes.
there's a group of only like 3 or 4 of them that are really sitting and that really want to do that, that's her game. She may be one of the better of closers in here. If there's, 3 or 4 horses lining up and they're all within a couple lengths, she just spots herself so much to do early that she usually has, there's horses that just always get the jump on her. But if everybody moves early in here, I have no problem playing her at a fair price.
Also worth noting is Juan Hernandez basically left the 10 to ride
Yep,
Coffee in
coffee in
Bed.
bed. Yep,
And that's got to say something, because
absolutely.
Ceiling Crusher is a pretty damn good horse, and
Just
I
another
just
great race,
another
right?
yeah,
Like
this is super.
really good sequence here as we move from the Torrey Pines for 3-year-old fillies. We're going to move to the Green Flash. This one, a 5 furlong turf sprint. And keep in mind that the Breeders' Cup is in Southern California at Santa Anita. So you will see a lot of these horses probably using this race and maybe 1 or 2 races at Santa Anita as preps for the Breeders' Cup. That'll be coming down the hill, I believe, at Santa Anita with the 6.5. So the layout will be a little bit different, but you'll see a lot of these horses. And this is a 5 furlong layout. And what you'll generally see in races like this, tons and tons of early speed. You've got the one fast buck who wants to go. Kid Corleone is quick. can sit a little bit. Turn on the Jets wants to sit a little, but Silent Poet wants to be right there and pressing. Beer Can Man wants to be close up. Lane Way wants to be close up. Noble Reflection can absolutely fly. I think that there are three. I thought there were three like wow fast horses in here. That'll probably be up front. Noble Reflection, Fast Buck, and then probably Bus Buzz. I would think those three, Barry, will probably be competing for the lead in here, and they could really be flying in this race.
Oh man, yeah, this is, I can't wait to see this race
I
because
know.
they're just going to be moving down the backstretch, and you know, funny enough, with all that, I think this one might be the chalkiest of these races. Um, I thought Beer Can Man is kind of a standout here. He's
Must use
just
to me in all exotics because of,
way
like,
classier than most of these horses. The pace sets up perfectly for this one. I like the last workout before this race. I mean, everything is pointing this horse's direction. I don't think there's any way we'll get 6-1, but
no.
2-1 would be probably appropriate for that horse.
He's a great fit in here. I have 0 knocks on him. He's in the mix in all exotics for me. I will use 1 or 2 more. I think the horse that beat him,
Notorious.
yeah, and that that's the horse who I'm in a fantasy horse racing league. I have a draft. I have a draft a little later on, so nobody will hear me by the time I play this. But I'm gonna try to get this horse late in the draft, Notorious, because I think he would be great for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint down the hill.
Yeah,
like five isn't even his best, but he can still win this race because of all the speed in here. And like 6.5 is where, if he gets this race under his belt, runs well, he could be a really sneaky horse and get me like a nice Breeders' Cup win, which are worth big points in this league. And he's not going to be a horse, I think, that is on a ton of people's radar because he's a turf sprinter from Southern California. He's been off for a little while. So he's going to get a great trip.
yes,
right?
absolutely.
It's so hard for me to see him not getting a great trip. He's been fantastic in all of his races for this barn, and I have 0 knocks on him. It's him, Beer Can Man, Turn on the Jets. The only other horse that I would mention, and I might use as a price, the key for me, can Kid Corleone do what he did in his career debut and what he did in the Bing Crosby? He sat and ran a bang-up race in the Bing Crosby, and he finished 4th. The 3 horses who finished in front of him in that race, you've got the Chosen Vron, who's won 8 races in a row and stepped up from Calbred to Grade 1 company and has earned multiple 100 buyer speed figures. You've got Anarchist, who just won the Pat O'Brien next out. Anarchist has, 9 races in a row where he's been in the exacta, and 6 of them are graded stakes races where he's been in the top 2, just always shows up. And the 3rd place finisher was Dr. Chevelle, who's a multiple Grade 1 winner and was 2nd in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. So he was 4th, barely beaten behind those 3 in a really tough Bing Crosby. And now, you look at his first race, his turf race, and the speed figures like very light, but that was his first career race. And he's just a way better horse now and just classier, and he's done a lot more. Can he sit? Like with Kent, DeSormo's not usually a shove-it rider. So I think with him aboard, he's going to try to sit. My only concern is like he could get shuffled down there between a lot of horses like in this type of a race. But I don't think he's too far away from competing with these. And he's only making his 3rd start as a 4-year-old, 3rd start off the long layoff. He still has some upside.
Yeah, this is a good spot for him to try the turf again, I think.
Yeah, I do.
If like you said, if he can sit and he takes to the turf, he might be tough in here because he certainly has the speed to do it. But I tend to go away from horses like this in races like this because, like you said, he's close, but I don't think the turf is where this horse is really meant. But it's just such a tough call because you can easily see this horse turning everything around and literally just running all these horses off their feet.
because he's
But
still
it,
lightly raced with some upside. Neither
yes,
one of us mentioned Bran in here, who has not run since last year. I think this is a little shorter than where he's at his best.
yeah, that's what I thought too. I don't think this trip is ideal
Like
for this
he's
horse.
one of these who looks like he could be prepping for the Breeders' Cup, right?
Hmm.
You get a race or two, you get one here, maybe one at Santa Anita, and then you're ready to rock like third off the bench come Breeders' Cup time.
Yes, yeah, and that might be the plan. You
Yeah,
know,
I think so. I think for a couple of these too. And so you got to be a little careful with the 5 furlong trip. It's different than 5.5, than 6.5 was way different sort of layouts here. And a
you
key to the
know,
race is like the 11. Like this is a horse who just can fly,
fast. Yeah.
can fly.
A bigger price that I kind of thought might make some noise here would be the 12 Paxo
Sure.
Wallop. Cutting back might be okay for this horse
Yeah.
because the pace sets up to be sharp, and this horse is cutting it back from a mile. Um, and if this horse could kind of get to, you know, working his way
Mid
kind of to the
pack.
lead,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Like
at the top of the stretch. If he's close at the top of the stretch, he might be tough.
he can be out wide a little cutting back, right?
Hmm.
You can sort of keep him out in the clear and just try to have him move early. He can give up a few lengths in this type of a spot, I think,
Yeah,
and be
because he's
okay
got
with it.
foundation.
Yeah,
He's been
little
running mile
bottom.
races, and you know, the workout patterns have been really good, really, like clockwork. I could see this horse kind of jumping up and running a decent race at a decent price from the outside because I think, this one kind of gets lost in the shuffle unless people just straight up bet Flavian Pratt, which is possible. But
Another where like I think we're gonna have a bunch of 7-2 shots because I think
yeah,
Matorius and Beer Can Man get bet a little, but I don't think some of the others are gonna be completely dismissed. So probably those two get bet a bit, but I don't think anyone gets. Man, like, yeah, it's just lots
this
of
is
ways to go
tough.
in here.
Yeah.
Again, freaking great sequence at Del Mar. They did a really nice job on Pacific Classic Day. As we move to the big one, the Grade 1 Pacific Classic. And in this one, they'll go 1.25 miles on the dirt. And the 3-year-olds are actually sort of the headliners in here. They'll be facing older for the first time. You have Go Rocket Ride, who's coming off his win in the Haskell. He beat the Kentucky Derby winner Mage in there. He also beat Arabian Night, who is a co-3-year-old who's going to also be trying older for the first time for trainer Bob Baffert. You have Skinner, who's another 3-year-old. I think he's a little bit intriguing in here because he's a horse who he's drawn way out wide. I don't think that'll hurt him if he just drops back and makes one late run. Yeah, I don't think he's going to sit that type of trip. Last time out, he was in a race, a small field where he was chasing Reincarnate. So you have a couple 3-year-olds who are major headliners in this race. Barry, others that are players, Defunded, who's been defeated by Senor Buscador and Slowdown Andy in his last start, but he's been in a lot of these top tier races in the West Coast for the last couple years. And then you have an older horse like Stiletto Boy, who's just always in a lot of the big fights. And he seems like he kind of falls into nice trips sometimes. He works really hard. Talk to us about the Pacific Classic.
At this point, it's like, what is a Grade 1 race out in California without Stiletto Boy in it?
I know.
Is it
Yeah.
really a Grade 1 if he's
If
not
he's,
there?
if
Because
he's
he's
not
always
there, it doesn't
running.
count. It doesn't count.
Exactly. I went through this race over and over and over again, and I was trying to get somebody other than who I think are the top two, and I couldn't. I thought I tried to give Skinner an extra long look, but it's hard to take a horse who's basically has one maiden win.
Yep. No, you're right.
And kind of going farther than he's ever gone before. Not a good recipe, plus the post isn't the greatest. I mean, it's not like he can't overcome that, but they really would have to go supersonic speed for that one to kind of pick up the pieces. It's not impossible, but I rate it unlikely. It looks just to me like the 3-year-olds, Go Rocket Ride and Arabian Night, and everybody else.
Yeah, I don't. I think the only. It's funny. I'm going to use the 3-year-olds. I'm going to use Skinner, who I mentioned a little bit more. But of of the older horses, the only one I'm going to, I don't like Defunded. I'm not going to use Defunded.
Okay.
And I'm not really. I don't think he's in a great spot. I don't really think his best races are even at 1.25 miles. Like, he's run well there, but I think Stiletto Boy could fall into a pretty good spot of the older horses to use in here. He just he always fights. Exactly what happened in the Santa Anita Handicap. He sat just off. He fell right into it. If they don't go that fast, he'll go and he'll battle. So of the older, I liked him. And the other two I could make a case for would be right next door to each other with the 7 and the 8. Andy and Senor Buscador. Andy moved early last time. And then Senor Buscador ran him down. Senor Andy, Slow Down Andy is a little more consistent overall. Senor Buscador is more of a need the trip, and he came flying because they went pretty quick. But for you, it's mainly Go Rocket Ride, Arabian Night. I've got Go Rocket Ride. Like, this is probably one of the races where I'm pretty chalky.
Yeah, same with me here. I don't see anybody past those two. Although I do think a horse like Katona has some upside. I don't know if this horse would actually like the trip as far as the distance. But one thing you can count on with Katona, that he does like to run hard in the stretch.
He's honest. He's super honest. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's kind of, for a 4-year-old, he's kind of coming to his own now.
His best
he
career
has some
races.
upside. Yeah. And, his last workout is an indication that he's sharp. So I wouldn't discount him. If you're playing, like tries and supers, he's definitely one to consider at a big price.
Go Rocket Ride is a horse that I've liked for I liked him all along. He was going to be my Derby horse. Like, after the San Felipe, I was like, this is my Derby horse.
That's your guy.
I think he's going to run well in the Santa Anita Derby, and I think he's going to be peaking like at a perfect time. And then he had to miss the Santa Anita Derby. So he's misses a little bit of time. So when he shows up in the Affirmed, he's not at 100% quite yet. That was just a nice starting point for him. And you saw the progression he made into the Haskell, and now he's had time. And you look around at this group of older horses and you say, who scares you in here? Right? I mean, he's the 5-2 morning line favorite, and he doesn't have to go and ship across country for any of the other 3-year-old races. So he gets to sit right here. And he just has that perfect running style that you like, where he's got enough speed to keep himself in striking range, no matter what the pace shape is. He can save all the ground from the inside. I don't have any concerns about the distance. Third start off the bench. Just, he checks a lot of boxes for me. And you know what? In a big field like this, he's the type of horse as a favorite who's actually going to end up being sort of an overlay, I think, in multi-race exotics, because a lot of people probably don't single in a race like this. If you really like him, a lot of people are going 3 or 4 or 5 deep in this big field. But if you play him and you key in on him and you just think he's a standout here, well, you can really spread around in some of the others. And he doesn't play like a 4 to 5 favorite that you single in the exotics.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting because Arabian Night is going to get a lot of action.
Absolutely.
Too.
Absolutely.
There's a situation where Go Rocket Ride will be
your second choice. Yep.
And that's
Defunded's going to take money.
Yeah.
Because he's known. He's been he's like the known commodity at this trip.
I think Slow Down Andy is going to take money too.
I agree. I wouldn't be shocked if he's more in the 5 or 6 to 1 range. So to me, Go Rocket Ride, just, it's a good fit. Everything's like positive for him coming into this. And I didn't love, like I said, I didn't love anybody else enough to really feel like I could go against him. Skinner was sort of my wise guy, kind of wild card horse that I'll throw in a pick forward to, but I'll probably build just a lot of stuff around Go Rocket Ride here, I think.
Yeah, I think I'm the same way. I think that horse is the goods, and he's got a good post. I think he gets the trip.
Yep.
Just got to get, Mike Smith does his thing, and we're all set.
I will say Arabian Night impressed me in that he's in the Haskell. Top of the lane, he looks done. And he actually held on pretty well for third. Yeah. Like, he did come back again. So he's got ability too, and he's still lightly raced and a little green, figuring things out. So
the one thing about that is typically Bob Baffert horses don't need a race.
No, and that's a good point.
But there's situations where it actually
Yeah.
happens that they needed the race they did
And
before
each horse is
won.
individual,
Right.
but for the most part, when we're taking the Baffert horses, you're right. Like usually they give you their best effort first, and they don't have as much of a step forward in that second start. It might be like the third start back, right after they build a little more foundation, when they can take another step forward. So
yeah. Plus, the other thing is I'm not sure that Arabian Night can run faster than he already has. That's
no,
the
and I
other
don't
thing
think
about
at
him.
this far,
Right.
too. Like if you turned him back to a mile, like he might be a really good miler, just
Oh yeah.
with that type of speed, and he might be able to take his run even faster just going that far. I don't know about going this far. Like how is he going to have any finish here to run sort of faster than he has?
Right, and that's why Go Rocket Ride style fits a lot better.
Absolutely. He's just more versatile. Yeah.
Yeah.
A little more push button. Go Rocket Ride. We're the no chalk zone a lot of the time. When we like a chalk or two, then maybe it's time to jump aboard. Let's see if Go Rocket Ride is the right one in the Pacific Classic. Let's finish up with the 5th of 5 graded stakes races on Saturday at Del Mar. Race number 11 is the Del Mar Handicap. They're going to go 1 mile and 3/8 in here, Barry. We have Planetario, another Richard Mandela horse who came over from who was at Santa Anita, went to the Haskell on Haskell Day, was in the United Nations, was 5-1, had a kind of bizarre trip.
Weird
I actually want to show it.
Weird trip.
I do think he fits really well in here, and he and even the horse who beat him, and he's Awfully Naughty. Awfully Naughty's connection sort of said he had run 1.25 miles, 1.5 miles, 1 3/4 miles, and the barn said, I think he had a little too many furlongs in that last race. It was kind of funny. I thought the quote was funny, but when you think about it, you're like, wow, that was 3 consecutive races of just going pretty far. It may have just caught up with the horse a little bit at the end. Awfully Naughty's fresh. I think he's intriguing, but we're looking at the race at Monmouth Park. This was the United Nations. We're looking at Planetario, believe is the 6th horse in here, and he's sitting in 7th right now, 3 from the 3rd from the back. So he's got the red cap on, but since he's inside, he's going to be able to move up pretty nicely, into contention. We can just go forward a little bit in here, and we can see the 6 on the inside. He's starting to move up, and now here he is. And you can tell what's going to happen because he's sort of in a bad spot. He's moving right up. Can he get in between horses right there? Nope. So he's sort of waiting. You got to tap on the brakes, and you're waiting. He wanted to go, and if he shot through right there in that 2 path and was able to move in between, he would have been able to build up a lot of momentum. He's still waiting here. He can't get to the outside because the 1's got him pinned in right there, and he can't move inside because there's 2 horses right there. And now all of a sudden, look at him get shuffled back even farther, and all of a sudden he's just waiting. Now he dives inside. Watch how quickly he moves all the way up inside into contention. Right here, he's got run. He ducks down to the inside. He just sort of can't hit it as hard as he could, all the way up the inside, but he's in 3rd right here. And then he loses 2 necks at the wire and runs 5th. Right? So
yeah, that's real deceptive.
It is, right? Because the 3rd feels a lot better than 5th. When
Absolutely.
you look at it on
and
paper.
it looks better, but geez, that horse probably should have won that race.
I know.
Because when they were going around the turn, the 8 was where the 6 wanted to be.
Yep.
And if they didn't get stopped, that's where they would have been, and maybe not would have won, but at least would have had a great chance to win.
Really close. I think he's a player.
Yeah, I like him in this spot a little bit as well. I think the outside kind of takes away from him a little bit. I like Awfully Naughty actually kind of a lot.
Yeah, me too.
It looks like they have a rabbit in Crosby Beach too.
Yep.
And just to ensure that there's going to be a pace for him to run into.
Mm-hmm.
Others obviously will take advantage of that as well, like Catkin Peak, who I think has a really, really good chance to win.
And that would probably hurt the chances of like Azul Coast, who I think's only shot would be if he gets out front.
Right.
And if Crosby Beach isn't here, they probably push each other. And then that's where it starts setting up for Planetario, Awfully Naughty. Those are my top two for sure. I think they both run really well in this spot. Who else are we looking at here? I mean,
Cash Equity is another one that is a deep closer that might need some space to run into.
And the horse to me that I'm using in closing exotics and everything also is the 4. Miss the Cut. This is a horse whose 2 races here were both on the dirt. His form overseas on the turf is not bad at all. He has a couple monster races going a mile and a quarter. Then he stepped up in against Group Company, but it was on a really soft turf course. And then he was off for a few months. He actually won on the synthetic. They tried him a couple times on the dirt, and he just isn't quite a dirt horse. But third start off the bench, he's got a really cagey turf rider in him, Valdivia Jr., and he can kind of sit a trip in here.
I looked at this horse really, really long, and I don't know really what I'm going to do with this horse on Saturday, because what puzzles me is why did they not run this horse
on the grass?
Turf?
Yeah, why they even took a shot on the dirt, and maybe you wonder, and I don't know, maybe that's a great question. Is it an owner thing? Is it Sadler wondering, maybe we'll see if we can get a horse to run in the Pacific Classic if he's classy enough? They take a swing in the San Diego and know that you can always come back to the grass, because you're looking at his form and you figure like this is a player wherever he shows up on the grass. This is kind of
it's like a known commodity on the grass, and it's not like this horse is a 3-year-old, which I could see. Like if the horse is a 3-year-old coming over here,
try to get into 3-year-old turf stakes races, the Oceanside in those races, or there's 3 of them,
or even grand scheme of things like Travers or something else.
Oh yeah, on the dirt. If you try on the dirt, if it's dirt, sure.
Right. Yeah, if it was a 3-year-old, but this is a 4-year-old horse. It's just a little weird that they didn't just find a spot. They could have found a race like that first one on the turf.
I know, and they worked him on the grass a couple times at Del Mar recently, and he looks like he's working fantastic.
I'm not sure. I mean, like you said, he's run lights out over in Europe, especially at a longer trip. I mean, I don't know. That one's just a straight up question mark. I'll probably end up using the horse, especially
because his price is fair enough to where if you're closing a pick 4 or pick 5, you don't want to not have him at that price.
He's not going to be favored. He's definitely not going to be favored. So
and I thought he was at least one worth mentioning in here. Missed the cut. The 10 won this race last year. Gold Phoenix. He's classy, but the outside draw could make things a little difficult for him. He's making his second start back. He's a grade 1 winner also. He'll come closing.
Oh yeah. That's what he does. And it's just I'm not convinced that he's going to get the kind of pace.
No, I don't. Of course he can win, but I just don't love him in this spot. I mean, like we've seen Awfully Naughty's beat him on the square previously when Gold Phoenix was favored in a first start off the bench situation. In his second start back, or that was actually in his second start off the bench, exactly on April the 4th, in that Whittingham when he was favored, lost to Awfully Naughty. So same exact type of situation here. Yeah, I mean, wouldn't shock, but like others more, especially at their prices with him pumped out there.
If we get if Miss the Cut ends up being like 10-1, that might be my play.
Yeah. Because he's just a real wild card, and that value could be key in a fantastic sequence of 5 graded stakes races on Saturday. Pacific Classic Saturday over at Del Mar. Couple more things to remind you about the Del Mar handicapping store. Everything you need to succeed every day there's racing at drf.com. You can get the PPs like we just had for Pacific Classic Day, Travers Day. I was going to say that was the big day last week over at Saratoga. And that Labor Day sale continues on all the way through Monday. My man, Barry, we got big Mondays going in circles. You guys have been talking a lot about the issues in racing as of late. Positives, negatives, right? We don't sugarcoat it. There's been a lot of bad stuff happening this meet at Saratoga. I think David Aragona said it's just like a nightmare you can't wake up from. It is like things just have been going wrong. what I like about what you and Chuck's you and Chuck Simon do over there, it's not always just complaining, we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do that. It's what should we do instead? What would a solution be to that? Because I think a lot of people like to complain or point things out, but they don't have a solution. They don't know what would work instead or what wouldn't work. A lot of times Chuck will say, hey, well, look, people will suggest this, that won't work. Or we should try, why don't we try this? It's very common sense. Why don't we just try this? You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because myself and Chuck come from two different worlds, like literally. Like he was on the backside. He grew up on the backside. He trained horses for a number of years and was very successful. I was on the other side. I didn't really pet a horse until I was in my teens. And you know, just learning it from a different perspective. And then when we both come together, we can give our perspectives on things and kind of meet in the middle, and we sometimes come up with good ideas. And we just want what's best for the sport. We want the sport to continue to thrive and be the greatest thing like we know it is. I mean, we've seen it at its pinnacle. We just want more of that, and hopefully, we can reach out to the masses and kind of get some momentum and get this ship going the right direction.
Man, I gotta give you a shout out too. We've covered over the last month, we've hit all the different tracks, right? We did a Woodbine, we did a Saratoga, we did Del Mar. We've hit them all so far.
Horse players, baby.
Yeah, well, all over the place. Whatever the big day is, Barry's been joining me to dive into these daily racing form past performances. And the big day this weekend is at Del Mar Saturday. 5 graded stakes that start in race number 7. For whatever you need, head to drf.com. Barry, buddy, good luck to you this weekend. I'll be going back and forth with you all weekend like always. And look forward to talking some races with you again somewhere next week. We'll figure it out.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I look forward to this every week. It's like, it's part of my schedule. I got nothing to do usually Thursday between 5 and 7.
Perfect. So this will be our time that we record. We can always get a look at whatever's big coming up for the weekend. And don't forget, Stable Duel has some big contests this weekend, Friday and Saturday. I sent in some plays, some of the horses that we talked about here, as you can use in your Stable Duel lineup. So good luck, my friend Barry. Good luck to all of you. Thanks so much for hanging out with us again. And we'll talk some more Del Mar next week, which will be the final week of racing over